So Dennis Prager is a right-wing commentator, and he is, of course, behind PragerU, Prager University. It's the least like a university of the so-called universities. It's right up there with Trump University, which was a proven fraud that Trump had to pay out millions of dollars in payments because he was sued over it and he lost. It's right-wing propaganda on steroids and human growth hormone, and it's amazing that anybody really falls for it and believes it. Well, anyway, this guy went on his radio show, which he was doing from his home, and you're going to find out why. Turns out he has COVID, but he's happy about that?
Okay, everybody, all good. I'm broadcasting from my home because I'm not going into the station as I have COVID. I was tested positive last week, and I have been steadily improving. At no point was I in danger of hospitalization. I have received monoclonal antibodies. That's Regeneron. I have, of course, for years, a year and a half, not years, been taking hydroxychloroquine from the beginning with zinc. I've taken Z-Pak, the erythromycin, as the Zelenko protocol would have it. I have taken ivermectin. I have done what a person should do if one is not going to get vaccinated. It is infinitely preferable to have natural immunity than vaccine immunity. And that is what I hoped for the entire time. Hence, I so engaged with strangers, constantly hugging them, taking photos with them, knowing that I was making myself very susceptible to getting COVID, which is indeed, as bizarre as it sounded, what I wanted, in the hope that I would achieve natural immunity and be taken care of by therapeutics. That is exactly what has happened. It should have happened to the great majority of Americans. The number of deaths in this country owing to COVID is a scandal, which one day will be clear to Americans.
Not looking so good, champ. Not looking so good. I like how at the beginning he's like, all good. He's got one of those buttons that, shuts off the mic when you cough. He coughed at the beginning of the segment. He says, I was hugging people like this is what I wanted. I wanted to get natural immunity. So his anti-COVID strategy is to get COVID. Not sure that's the best idea, dog. Not sure that's the best idea. And I have, 720,000 corpses that prove my point? I mean, listen, here's my little conspiracy theory about this. I think Dennis Prager probably did get the vaccine. I think he did. Because you do have all these hosts at Fox News, probably some of the hosts at One American News Network and Newsmax. They're taking these nominally anti-vaccine positions, or at the very least anti-mandate positions, and they're feeding the audience what they want to hear. But what they're not telling you is that virtually all of them are vaccinated. So they're protected, but they're feeding the audience this line that, hey, maybe it's not the right thing to get the vaccine. If you'll notice, no national level political commentator on the right has died of COVID. But at the same time, there's been, Jesus Christ, I don't even know the number at this point. I might not be exaggerating when I say 6 or 7 right-wing radio hosts at the local level and the state level that have died of COVID. Because here's the difference. The state and local right-wing commentators are true Kool-Aid drinkers. They have real ideological commitments against the vaccine. And so they didn't get the vaccine, and then when they got COVID, a bunch of them died. Also because they're old, and a bunch of them probably have a bunch of comorbidities as well. Dennis Prager is old as dirt. So if he is one of the people who's truly committed and didn't get the vaccine, then he might have a little bit of a rough go of it. But if he did get the vaccine, which I think it's 60-40. 60% he did get the vaccine, 40% he didn't. He'll be fine if he got the vaccine. And the other thing is, you can't downplay the fact that he took the monoclonal antibodies. I know he mentioned hydroxychloroquine there. The studies on that are pretty conclusive at this point. It doesn't really help with COVID. Ivermectin, at best, we don't know yet if it helps, but a lot of the evidence I've seen indicates that it doesn't help with COVID. But the fact that he's taken those monoclonal antibodies, which is the stuff that was given to Donald Trump, and the fact that he's taken azithromycin, that's another part of the standard treatment regimen for COVID. He's taking some drugs that do help with COVID. So even if he is unvaccinated, that as well can help save him. Because I'm sure a lot of the local and state level right-wing radio hosts, they probably, most of them didn't get any treatment, or if they did get treatment, it wasn't the top level, monoclonal antibody treatment. So, he's probably going to end up being okay because of that treatment, but also I think because 60% chance he is vaccinated. Because he strikes me as the type who is smart enough to know, of course, getting the vaccine is the right thing. The data is overwhelming. Anybody who looked at the data, what was that study in France? 22 million people. That's as big as a study as you're going to get. Cut severe COVID risk by 90% if you're vaccinated. That says a lot. I've shown you the chart on this show. Hospitalizations, people who got the vaccine versus people who didn't. The people who got the vaccine, it's a near flat line. It ticks up a touch, but near flat line. People who didn't get the vaccine and hospitalization, go straight up. I think Dennis Prager knows that. I think he does. So probably going to be okay, but think about the message this sends to the audience. Because probably most of the people in the audience, if they get COVID and they're not vaccinated, who knows if they have access to that monoclonal antibody stuff? Who knows? I read a while ago, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but I read a while ago that there was a shortage of that stuff. So, Dennis Prager, I'm sure he's well off financially. He can afford to get that treatment. Some of the people listening, maybe not. And so you're really sending a terrible message to your audience. And there was data that came out recently, a couple months ago, that showed it is more so hitting red America than blue America. So most of the COVID deaths right now are centered in red America. And with razor-thin election margins, at what point is it like the message you're pitching is killing off your voters and that might actually impact elections? But imagine saying that publicly. I was trying to get COVID. You were trying to get COVID? Yeah, it was my anti-COVID strategy is to get COVID. Imagine applying that logic anywhere else. My anti-murder strategy is to murder. What? Probably better off getting vaccinated and trying not to get COVID. That would be my super brilliant, genius level advice to everybody when it comes to this pandemic.